Did you know that 71% of the people that watch Matthew Kelly's videos are not subscribers? That makes no sense. We need to change that. Subscribe today. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications so you never miss out on another great video ever again.
We hear a lot about culture in our daily conversation. People talk about the culture at work. People talk about the culture of the church. People talk about, of course, culture in society. And as we look at culture in society, I think we're becoming increasingly aware of how powerful that culture is. Certainly as a parent, I think you become hyper aware of it because you're mindful of anything that might help or hurt your child from becoming the best version of himself or herself. And so you become hypersensitive to the effects of culture. I think we all from time to time need to step back and say, okay, is the culture helping us or is the culture hurting us? Of course, that begs another question, and that question is, well, where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? Because you can't decide if the culture is helping you or hurting you unless you know where you're headed or what it is you're trying to accomplish. And of course, once we do realize, discover, or stake out the idea that, okay, we're trying to become the best version of ourselves, we're trying to become all God created us to be, we're trying to live good lives, in that context, when we ask the question, is the culture helping us or the culture hurting us? I think we very quickly discover that it isn't helping us in many ways and that it is hurting us in many, many subtle ways. But they're so subtle that they just grind away on us and they wear us down. And so we have to be aware of this and we have to guard ourselves against the negative effects of culture. The saint we're talking about today is Anthony of the Desert. He lived in a time where he basically decided the culture is bankrupt. Okay, and yes, the culture of his times had problems. I think the culture of our times has 10 times more problems, 100 times more problems than the culture of his times. Anthony of the Desert decided to go to the desert. He basically said, the culture is bankrupt, I'm leaving it behind. I'm going to go out and live in the desert. I'm going to live a life of prayer and reflection. And that's how I'm going to become a better version of myself, become all God created me to be, and try and live a good life. Very quickly, other people went out there to join him, and at different points in history, we do need people to separate from the culture in order to reflect very deeply on the culture. But we're not all called to run away from the culture in such a complete and absolute way as Anthony did. Parents often ask me, what can I do to help my child, live the faith or, become a better version of themselves or take these ideas seriously in their life? I encourage parents to, write down a 2-sentence description of their child or how they envision they would like their child to be when their child is 21, and then another 2-sentence description of how they would like their child to be when their child is 35, and another 2-sentence description of how they like their child to be when their child is 50. And then when I read over those descriptions with the parent, what I point out to them is what they describe is a countercultural person. No parent says, just give me the average 21-year-old. That's my vision for my child. Give me the average 21-year-old in the culture, and I'm good with that. There isn't a parent on the planet that has that vision for their child. Our vision for our children tends to be countercultural. And so then we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, what in my life is countercultural? How will my children learn to be countercultural? We may be in the culture, but we don't have to be of the culture. And we are called to be in the culture so that we can share the truth, beauty, goodness of our faith with other people. And so if we want our children to grow up in this vision we have for them, we have to realize that having countercultural muscles, having the ability, the willingness to be countercultural is very, very important to that journey. And of course, that comes back onto us to ask ourselves again, what in my life is countercultural? You know, could I be convicted by a jury of my peers of being countercultural? Could a jury of my peers gather enough evidence to convict me of being countercultural? Because if they can't, or if they couldn't, then chances are we're not going to be able to share that ability to be countercultural with our children, and we're not going to witness that ability to be countercultural to our friends, our family, our colleagues at work. And this is a time where we have to be very mindful about the role that we allow the culture to play in our lives. And the saints, every single one of them, were very, very aware. They had this awareness of the relationship between their spirituality and the culture. They had this awareness that their spirituality could build in them a strength so that they could go out and have a positive impact on society, on the culture. But if they got lazy in their spirituality, a reverse osmosis began to take place, and that is the culture began to have an impact on them, and usually a very negative one. And so our question today is culture helping you, or is the culture hurting you?